Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. Welcome to the Clutter Fairy Weekly for January 14th, 2020. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, gang. How are you doing
This is our
today? Go ahead.
second webcast of the new year, and a reminder that we meet live every Tuesday at noon Central Time to offer organizing tools and techniques, success stories and aha moments, seasonal suggestions, and timeless tips. We'll also answer your questions and tackle topic suggestions we get from you, our viewers and listeners. Before we get started with today's topics, I wanted to give a couple of quick notes to people who are watching live. If you're participating in the Zoom meeting, please feel free to share your comments and questions via chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature, and one of these days we're going to get people to do this, to let us know that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video, and I will turn on your audio and video and you can ask your question yourself. We're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can also share your questions and suggestions in the comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. During the live webcast, you can also call into the meeting using the number at the top right of the screen. Okay, Gayle, our topic for today is clutter and aging. We had several questions last week. People dealing with elderly parents who need more help than they're willing to ask for, or don't even recognize that they need help. And then, of course, you know, we're all getting older by the day too. So this is always a timely topic.
Right?
And what do you have to say about it?
Uh, hi, everybody. I have a whole lot to say about clutter and aging, that's for sure. This is a topic that we get asked a lot, and specifically the conversation we had last week was somebody was talking about they were trying to help their elderly parent, and the parent was resisting the help, and what did we want to do about it. And so we had some conversation around that last week. But this week, because of that conversation, I thought we should circle back and talk a little bit about clutter and aging from the point of view of her elderly parent. Like, if you are that person, how does clutter and the ability to manage clutter it be affected by the fact that we're aging? As you know, every day we're getting older, right? So one of the things that happens as we are aging is that we have physical limitations, and our physical capacity is changing. So clutter is a hands-on, very physical, get in there and move stuff around kind of a job. And you have to have the ability to bend over, lift boxes, climb up a ladder, carry things around the house, load things in the car. And so it requires some physical stamina. And so as you age and you find that walking is harder, or standing for long periods of time is harder, or you can't lift as much weight as you used to, it makes managing the clutter more difficult project. So your physical capacity is going to interfere with your ability to declutter as you age. That's number one. Number two is that you might have a medical event that interferes. So sometimes people have, like this year I tripped and fell in the driveway of a client and bent my fingers back. You know, I hit the ground and bent my fingers back and had volar fractures in 2 fingers, and I had to have physical therapy, and I still can't bend my finger all the way. And it's like, you know, we start to have bad knees and bad hips, and things get broken, and ankles get twisted, and knees get torn, ligaments, and you know, you start having physical injury and incapacity, and then also illnesses. And so maybe you have a stroke or a heart attack or something, depending on where you are in your process. So these things are going to interfere with your ability to manage the clutter as well. So just purely physical injury is going to make it difficult to do the physical things I talked about earlier. But then if you have something like a stroke, or you have a chronic fatigue issue, or there's some kind of illness that gets in the way, then you're going to have things like you're going to have brain fog, and decision making is getting hard, and it's going to be more of a struggle to prioritize, make choices, to stay on task and to stay focused for a period of time. And so that your medical condition is going to start to interfere with your ability to get your decluttering done and stay focused on that project. In addition, you will be likely downsizing as you age. So some people are lucky enough that they have the help and they own their house and they feel like they can age in place with support and people coming to them. And so maybe they live in a family home and maybe there's a bunch of relatives nearby, and so their plan for aging in place involves staying in the home and having people come to them to help them manage as they get older. But not everybody is in that position, and a lot of times where you are living is not near your family, and so at some point you may, because you need the help, you may want to move into an assisted living place, or you move into an independent living place where you're going to have your own home or apartment, but there's some collective services that are provided as part of that community. And so that downsizing process is usually one where you lose square footage and you lose storage space and you can't keep everything anymore. So if you're lucky enough to stay in your home and age in place, then that creates an issue for what your family has to do and clear out after you're gone. But if you are downsizing as you age, then you are going to be having to surrender contents to fit into ever smaller locations. And so I had a client who had lived in the house for her whole married life, and she was now living in her daughter's house. And so she had a bedroom, and she had she had her own bedroom and bathroom, but basically she was now a resident in her daughter's home. And so she didn't have the same level of storage capacity, square footage to put all her things. And so what that meant was we were emptying her house completely so that that house could be sold, and for her to pull the very important things that she wanted to go with her to her daughter's house. And as you can imagine, the daughter's response at that point is, oh my God, you can't bring everything that you own into this house. And her interaction at that point was, but I love this, but I want this. And it was a very, it's a very delicate negotiation between, I want to take all my things that I love with me, and I no longer have the space to have all the things that I love with me. And so you have to find some kind of balance there. And part of what makes that easier is decluttering over time, so that you're not trying to do it. Okay, now mother has fallen and the doctor says she can't live alone, and the solution is she has to move in with me, and therefore we have to empty her house, and we have 2 weeks, and then everybody gets in a panic and all the decision making gets made in a really compressed time frame, and it makes it super, super hard on everybody and very stressful. And so recognizing that you may be downsizing over your lifetime at this stage of life, and trying to thin the contents of the house now, so that when you pull that trigger, when it suddenly becomes time to go, either you can do it with some kind of a plan, or you can do it in a way that there's not as much left to manage because you've already been downsizing all along. And I guess what I'm saying is, it's not a matter of if, really, it's a matter of when. And so anything that you can do in advance to make that happen will make it an easier transition for you later, and easier on your kids to help you make that move. And if you don't have kids and you don't, then it's got to be some kind of somebody that you hire, or some friend of yours that's going to step up and be helpful. And anything that you can do to make that easier for them and make the transition easier for you would be a good thing. Another issue about clutter and aging is that you have a whole bunch of family details in your head about the photos, the furniture, the antiques that you've inherited. That's grandma's china. This is great grandpa Joe's wedding license from 18 whatever. Like there's all this family history stuff that you have that you are now the most current repository of that data. And so the kids haven't quite maybe gotten into it yet, or they've never heard the story before, or they were too young to pay attention when you told them last. And so there is a bunch of sentimental attachment and family history that goes with some of the things that you own. And so being able to have the time to tell your kids, your grandkids, your whoever's going to end up with it, this is the story that goes with this photo. These are the people in this photo. This is the story that goes with that piece of china. You have to have some time to pass that information on and to transfer those stories to the next generation. And so as you age, that kind of information goes by the, it's hard to get everybody to stop and focus on it. And you can't sit and tell your whole life story and all of the things in your house in one sitting. That's way too much to ask of somebody. And so it's an important thing to pay attention to and to dole out in little pieces over time, or write down and attach to things so that there's some information attached to it. I've been in people's houses where they pull out the old box that came from grandma's house, and here's the things that she got from her grandparents, and so now it's 4 or 5 generations old, and you open, here's this little box, and you open the little box and there's a note inside that says this was grandma Martha's thing that she got in college, or there's some sort of story written and attached to the item, which identifies who owned it and tells the story of why everybody kept it. And it takes a little while. There's some time investment in transferring those details to the next person. And so it's important to give yourself the time to do that. And it's one of the things that's evaporating as we age, right? Is the time to tell the stories.
Gayle, it strikes me that this might be an opportunity to take advantage of technology and to take advantage of
Yes.
if you have it, the availability of a younger generation. So
right.
Get the grandchildren involved and
tell them to get out their smartphone.
I was going to say, get the ubiquitous video cameras going, because that,
right.
It takes less of a time commitment to take a minute and record grandma telling the story.
Yes.
And showing the item, and
having the voice and hearing her voice,
hearing her voice
in her own words,
and having that wonderful artifact, that wonderful piece of history later when grandma's gone.
Exactly. And you're right that every little kid from 12 years old on has a phone that has a video camera on it, and they know how to use it better than I do. So you might as well let them do it, right? That's a perfect suggestion. Part of what I want to say is, just in general about clutter and aging, is you don't want to leave this as a burden to your family, because I've heard people say, oh, well, I'm just going to let my kids deal with it, which is a very, I don't know if it's intended to be a punishment, or if it's the response of, I don't want to face it, it's too much work, and so I'm going to let younger people deal with it. But it is a big burden to leave your entire life and all of your contents and everything to someone else to clean out. And so as you're working on your stuff, anything that you take to Goodwill or donate to someone or take to church and give away or whatever is one less thing that your family doesn't have to manage. And it makes a difference that the volume is as reduced as possible, because I was in those shoes. My mother passed away, and we had been working on her house for a long time, and it wasn't that it was super cluttered, but we had been going through and thinning the herd and having her make decisions and taking things off to she would sell them and give the money to her favorite charity or whatever. And we had been doing all that kind of stuff so that when we went to go clear the house, it wasn't a huge burden. I mean, it was a big house and we spent 2 weeks working on it, but it was a much easier process than it would have been if Mother hadn't done anything at all. And I was really grateful. And it also meant that Mother and I had spent a lot of, encapsulated, here's a couple hours here and a couple hours there. And we had done a lot of work together over a period of time, which meant that, we spent some quality time together as well, even doing decluttering. it was a good thing that she had done the work, and I was really grateful for it, is what I'm saying. And so my sister and I had this project to empty this house, and some things had to be moved to Houston, and it was a typical process, but her house was thinner than a lot of my clients because we'd been doing work all along, and it made the burden easier for the two of us. And that's what I have to say about Clutter and Aging in the encapsulated version. That's the short version. Do it while you still have capacity.
Bonnie had a terrific comment that I'm going to share.
Okay.
She said, aging in place is not an option for us, and our children live across the country. A few years ago, my husband had a catastrophic back injury, which left him confined for several months. Fortunately, he has rehabilitated. What I learned was that a 2-story house is not the best option.
No.
I started by making sure everything in that house is something I can move myself. I actually paid movers to move furniture from upstairs to the garage so that I could donate it. So it began, and now 3 years later, I have made great headway. Our goal is to move to a condo, 1 floor, and less responsibility. Every time I donate items or drop off household goods, feels like a weight off my shoulders.
Good for you. And it sounds like you're doing exactly what I'm advocating for, which is starting now. And I'm sorry that it was your husband's injury that sort of was your wake-up call to get going. But you make a very excellent point that a lot of people, it's a couple and the woman relies on the man to move stuff around. And if the husband gets injured or is unwell, then suddenly your in-home workhorse is no longer available. And so it becomes very necessary to be able to move things in a capacity that doesn't hurt you. And I will tell one more cautionary tale, which was I went to work with a client after they had moved into assisted living because they, as everyone does, they brought too much stuff. And so they needed some help making it safe for her to move around. And they realized, they called me in because the rehab person had come to the house and said, this pathway isn't clear enough. You got to be able to get the walker in here. And they wanted somebody to clear up the pathways for her. And so that's what I was there to do. And what had happened was they had moved and they had downsized, and she went around and was working super, super hard on getting into this new apartment. And so she overtaxed herself and cracked a vertebra in her back in the process of all the moving and boxing and lifting and toting that she did in very, they did it in like a 6-week period. She really, really worked too hard, and she was lifting things that she shouldn't have been lifting. And so she did not recognize that she needed more help than she asked for. And then she got injured as a result of doing too much. And so then she had to go through a whole bunch of rehab, and, it took a long time to figure out something was wrong. And so she's been laid low by this back injury. And that was also part of why, they were in rehab from that. And she was using a walker, and I needed to come and make it easy for her to get the walker around. And so it is something that you think that you want to be able to do all yourself, and you think that you're going to do it like you did when you were 40, and you don't give yourself enough time to do it, and then you end up being injured. You certainly don't want to have an injury from, moving your stuff around, right? So be very, very cautious when you start to do this process for yourself, that you don't overtax yourself and that you don't lift more than you should lift. Ask for help, recruit help, and it was great that she's like, I'm not taking them. Nobody's getting the furniture down to the garage. I need, big, strong young people to come and take the furniture down. And that's exactly the right thing, because if you had tried to do any of that yourself, you probably would have hurt yourself. So kudos on you, Bonnie. You did a great job. Clapping for you right now. Yay.
Lynn has a question that's kind of related to what we're talking about.
Okay.
She said, I want to take photos of items and put the photo and personal notes about that item in a notebook. Is there software that allows you to add notes to a photo? And you use Evernote. I don't use
Yeah,
Evernote
yeah.
much, but would you recommend that for that purpose?
Yeah, Evernote, it might be a little bit of overkill, but it is, you can add photos and you can add notes and documents around those photos. And so um, you could do that in Evernote for sure. But I mean, really any place you can do it in Dropbox. If you add a photo in Dropbox and then add a document in Dropbox with the instruction or the notes that you want to make, you can certainly do that. And so, I mean, there's really any place that takes photos and documents. So any software that will take both of those would be a way for you to do that. That's a great idea, actually. I mean, I wouldn't think that you would want to write on top of the photos
No,
in the
right.
software.
Just
You're not wanting
annotations.
to try to add, yeah, you just want to put annotations. And so, yeah, you can drop photos into a Word document and type around them there as well. Like you can really, you can use almost any kind of software that uses documents and can add photos as attachments or inserts, and you should be fine. And the list is as long as your arm. So try some of the stuff that you've already got and see if it works. I mean, that might be a thing to do.
Yeah.
Good idea. I mean, the analog version of that is you take a picture and you stick it in a photo album, and you take a note and you stick the note in the photo album too. Like, you can do an analog version of that as well. Yeah, great
JC,
idea.
JC added, most printers come with software that allows you to do that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, sometimes they'll come with a sort of photo album utility.
Oh, I understand what you're
You
saying now.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Um,
Absolutely.
do you use Instagram at all?
I just opened an Instagram account last week. We had a back to business workshop at NAPO, and it was one of the classes, and so I had to start Instagram in order to take this class. And so I have an Instagram account that's 2 weeks old.
Okay, all right. So you're no more of an expert than I am.
No, exactly.
This is something we should probably research a little bit, but it would be
Yeah.
nice to be able to make some recommendations about ways to save and annotate photos and video to share, because you might,
Yeah.
I'm thinking if you could create a private album that you could share with your siblings and your children and
Well,
grandchildren and
think
so forth.
about the Gumnick family group. You guys have a private Facebook group,
Right,
and
right.
and you could put photos in there with notes in Facebook or Twitter or any of those. All take
Yeah,
photos, and you can make them part of your digital life with
yeah.
commentary, and either share it
Except,
privately or share it publicly.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Well,
have albums in Facebook, and they could be, just for the family, and put those photos in there. That's a great idea.
yeah. We can look into that. Look a little
Good
deeper into that,
suggestion.
though. So,
Okay.
Charlotte commented on Facebook. I am 76 and an artist. I have
Uh-oh.
half a house with 30 years of collection of my art and all kinds of art supplies. I'm decluttering my house and need help. Photos, art, paintings, and framed watercolors. I need help in what to do with the art. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I've had this question before, what to do with the art. So it is something that if you don't have any family members that want to take art with them. Did you say that? Did she say that?
She didn't specifically say that.
Okay. Well, so I would ask your family if they want some, if you have family to ask. And B, I would ask, like, head for a art school, a university art class. Maybe there's a local, like in Dallas, there was what was it used to be called? I did a class there one year. It was like a local arts and crafts center where they taught a bunch of classes. Maybe you donate it to a charity locally that you like and support so that they can auction it off for as a fundraiser, or maybe you give it to them so that they can hang it in their office space somewhere. I mean, it will be a little weird because you sort of have to let people pick what they like, and it's like going to an art fair, right? And having people like or not like your artwork. So there is a little bit of emotional exposure around that, but the non-exposure version is that you donate it without interacting or discussing it with anybody, and then you don't know what they do with it, and you just let that be and live with that, and that the art is in the universe somewhere. Or you are more interactive about it and say, hey, I have these paintings as my original work. And the people that would be more likely to be interested in it are other artists or other art students or other art teachers, people that recognize the art and are already have an affinity for artwork. It would be a good place to start. If you have a college nearby, if you have a high school nearby, you never know where somebody wants a piece of art. You can also have a garage sale, and if you're in your neighborhood, I hate for you to do it in the winter if you're someplace cold, but and there's always, like, so a friend of mine here is running an auction this coming weekend for the female police officer, Kayla, who was killed a few weeks ago in Houston. And I donated some of my jewelry for the silent auction. And so you can do something similar with your art, like who's doing a fundraiser, who's doing an auction, who's trying to raise money for their charity, and you can offer these items for sale at an auction. I recognize it's, that because it's your own artwork, it makes it a little bit harder to surrender it without understanding where it's going. But, you can do that by interacting with other arty people and just give it away to people that find it interesting or could make money for their organizations doing it.
Yeah, they're nonprofits.
Yeah.
Bonnie added, you can add photos to Google Drive using the Google Photos app and then add annotations from the drive. She uses this for genealogy archiving, and you can make the photos shareable. She says,
yeah, because you can invite people to look at stuff in Google Drive for sure.
She said, I also sync the pics from my iPhone to Google Photos, which makes it great if I want to scan the photo with my phone.
Right, exactly.
I want to circle back to a question that came in early on, but it was not quite on our topic, but
okay.
It's one we get often, but where and how do you start cleaning out / organizing your home when every drawer and closet needs work?
That's a good question. That's an excellent question. So if everything needs work, I would start with, you said closet and drawer. If every closet and drawer is full, I would start with a closet or a drawer. Like, that's a good place to, as you
look for a small victory.
Yeah, look for a small victory, and also look for the, like everything that you open is going to pull stuff out, and you're going to have to do something with it. And so opening a cabinet and pulling the contents of that cabinet out and deciding what's going to go to Goodwill and what needs to go to somebody else, and then putting back only what you really want to keep would be a great place to start, and to do it in little pieces so that then you've spent an hour or 2 hours and you put the stuff back in the cabinet and you put the stuff for Goodwill in the car and you close the cabinet, and your whole life isn't cookie tossed. You haven't like made a big mess that you can't recover from. And I think that gets discouraging for people when they start on a process. If they start in too big of a way, it always looks worse before it gets better, because you're destroying the way that it's stored now in order to look at everything, and then you run out of steam before you get to completion. And then you're like, oh my God, it just looks worse. It's so awful, blah, blah, blah. So it is a perfect pull out that one drawer and work on that one drawer, go in the closet, and depending on how big your closet is, that's probably several trips, several sessions of work in the closet. So, because you're going to look at it and you're going to think, I got to try those clothes on, I got to try those shoes on, I got to, what's in that box at the top of the closet, I got to, there's a whole lot going on in the closet probably, and it requires a lot of interaction. And so I would go into the closet and then only work on one rod, or only pull the stuff off the top shelf, or only focus on the floor. Like, you want to subset the closet as well, because if you do your whole closet in once, pull everything out and start messing with everything, you're going to run out of steam way before you're ready to put it all back, and way before you've made all the decisions you need to make. And so it's important to do what you can focus on and get to some level of completion in what you think of as one sitting, or to work in a room that nobody really goes into, and if you destroy it for a while, it won't bother anybody. If you have a junk room, for instance, and nobody goes in there except to throw another box, and that's a good place to go, and you can work for as long as you can take it, and then you can close the door even though it's not finished and walk away, and it doesn't bother anybody or interfere with your ability to go to work or eat food or whatever. And so always start someplace small that you can complete, and walk away and feel accomplished, and come back and do the next drawer another day. Right? And practice make perfect. So if you do small things and you do them over and over and again, and do it as long as you have the capacity, and repeat, by your fifth drawer, by your third closet, you're going to be rocking and rolling. You're going to be an expert. You're going to be letting it rip. So practice definitely makes perfect, for sure.
Okay, Gayle, I'm going to circle back to Charlotte on Facebook, who she
Okay.
added, I am a professor of art and it's hard to give it away. And then asked, should I give it away? And that's a tough personal decision.
Yes, and if you have been selling it all along, and you want to make a concentrated effort to sell it, okay, that does increase your task list, right? It makes it harder for you to get it on its way if you have to do that in exchange for money. So it is something that you want to consider. How much work and time do you want to put into the process? And I would think that the start small advice applies here as well. Like, you don't have to disperse your entire collection next week, right? So go through and pick a few that you think would be easy for you to manage, or go through and pick the ones that you really don't like and donate those away, and maybe you feel okay about it because you've donated them and you didn't like them anyway. And like, every artist has something that they're like, oh, can't believe I did that. That was the worst. You have ones that you love and ones that you hate, and then there's people out there that love the ones you hate, and vice versa. And so art is subjective. We all love something different. So I'm sure that there are ones that you are much more attached to of your work than others, is my point. And you can focus on the ones that you're not as attached to, and maybe you want to offer, you're a professor, so maybe you want to offer them free to students. Like, does anybody want it? And here they are, and I'm giving them away, and I'm trying to downsize, and does anybody want any of this art? And maybe it'll be cool for them to collect a piece of their professor's art. That might be something that they like. So I get it that it's going to be hard, and you don't have to do the same thing for every piece in your collection. And I know that you don't love everything equally. And so I would start with the ones that you don't love as much, and experiment with, do you want to give it away, to try giving some away to your students, and do you want to donate to some charities, and have some experiences with how that works for you. Try different solutions on some different pieces and see how it goes. I'm sure it's very hard to give away your art. I get it. We don't want to. But you are also recognizing that now you've had a lifetime of work, and that body of work is getting to be overwhelming to live with. And so either you get to be involved in the disbursement of it yourself, and you get to actively make the decisions about how and where it goes, or somebody's going to come behind and do it for you, and maybe not with the same level of thought and focus. And so if you want to be involved in it, if you want to know what happens to them, then you get to do it now. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
Gayle, I want to share a comment from Ginger. She said, I inherited my grandmother's photo trunk, put all the photos in photo albums with the backs exposed, not covered with other photos. Took it around to all the older family members and got help identifying the subjects. Great stories discovered. Thinking of printing a photo book for the family.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. And that's the thing. It's like, this person recognizes that one in the photo, and this other person recognizes the other person in the photo, but not everybody knows everybody. And you really have to show it to all the relatives. That's a great idea. It made it portable. You got to interact with your family. And I have to tell you that I'm sure they were thrilled that you were interested in showing them the pictures and wanted to talk about them. I'm sure they were just thrilled to death to share their information with you. What a lovely thing to do.
Well, we
That's
are
awesome.
just about out of time. Before
It's
we
true.
run completely out, I want to remind particularly Facebook viewers that we have a collection of more than 100 videos on a variety of organizing topics on our YouTube channel at cfhou.com/YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube to receive notifications whenever we post a new video. And please feel free to share your comments and questions on YouTube. We read them all and we try to respond to every one. So Gayle, I wanted one more quick thing, which is to circle back to a question we had. Well, not a question, a comment. Jimmy on YouTube said, I'd love to see some of your beadwork sometime. I don't suppose we could twist your arm.
Yes, you can. Thank you, Jimmy. It was so sweet of you to mention my jewelry. I appreciate that so much. A big shout out to this coming weekend is the Texas Bead Retreat. And so I will be spending the weekend with my beady chick friends in Temple, Texas over the weekend. And so in honor of the I guess it's the 21st annual Texas Bead Retreat, I thought I would answer her question about my bead jewelry. This is a bracelet that I did. So this is bead embroidery, and it's bead on fabric with the ultra suede backing. And so that's all very free form, and I did that one. That's probably about 60 hours. People always ask me how long did it take. So that's a cuff bracelet that's 60 hours, and this is a really cool piece of a hand-blown glass bead, which was awesome, a cab. Okay, this is an example of bead weaving. So this is a bracelet that I did from a pattern, and that is, bead to bead on needle and thread. And let's see, this was also a bead weaving bracelet I did from a pattern that is needle and thread, bead to bead. This one is this necklace is a bead embroidery piece. So this part is bead embroidery. There's a cab onto fabric, and then it has this ultra suede backing. And then this is a bead weaving cord that it's strung onto. So yes, I do make my own stuff. Thank you for noticing. These earrings are from my friend Julie Vasquez, who made them for me as a gift years ago. I'm still wearing them. I love them. And so that is my shout out to Beaders Texas Bead Retreat. And I'll be hanging out with my beady chick friends this weekend. So hi, everybody. See you on Thursday. And thanks for asking. I appreciate it. She made the comment on the craft video. We talk about organizing your craft room, and that was where she made the comment. So if you are a crafter and you want some help with organizing your craft room, I have a video about that. So you can go find it. Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, a reminder that our next meeting will be on Tuesday, January 21st at noon Central Time, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To receive notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by going to cfhou.com/Facebook. or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe.
I'm not a very good Vanna.
It's all right. You're a very talented artist. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your questions and topic suggestions in the YouTube comments, and you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Awesome. We are so glad that you came to listen to us talk today. I appreciate it, and we will see you next week when I come back with a whole bunch of new bead stuff made. Bye.